Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. So on Twitter on Tuesday night, I announced I'm taking Blunder of the Week for the rest of the year because, as you guys know, if you listen to that episode, I forgot to hit record for the first 2 minutes of the show. But you know what didn't happen? I did not forget to hit record tonight. So we're going to get a proper introduction this episode. I'm super excited for that. And not only because I remember to hit record, but I'm super excited to bring on another brand new person onto the podcast. First time talking to this guy. I believe he said in my messages, this is his first time ever being on a podcast. So I'm super buzzing to have this guy on. And the guy who I have on tonight is Andrew. So thank you for coming on to the show tonight, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You were right. This is my first podcast, so hopefully this will go well. But let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, that's why part of the reason why I started this podcast is because, look, I live in Maryland. I'm sure you live in Philadelphia in the Pennsylvania area, and we already know that the Philadelphia Union, they're so niche, and so to be able to talk with somebody else about the Philadelphia Union, it doesn't come quite often. And so I figured, let me just talk to fans and everything. Like, you guys don't get to talk about Philadelphia Union unless you're on Twitter or you know people personally. Me living in Maryland, I never get to talk Philadelphia Union. So whenever I get to talk to somebody brand new, I'm super excited. But why don't you start off and just letting everybody know how you became a fan of the Philadelphia Union?
So you're correct. I live about 30 minutes north of Philadelphia. I've been a season ticket member for the last 2 years. Been going to games for about 3 years. Really, I kind of picked up the Union when I moved back to the Philadelphia area. I've kind of bounced all around, and I'm sure similar to a lot of people that are kind of coming around to the MLS. I started as a Premier League fan, kind of watching the World Cup. Moved over to the Premier League after a World Cup, and then kind of when I came here, became a Union fan. But really, for me, my passion for the Union took off when I first went to a game. So I would say about 3 years ago, that's when I really became a Union supporter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that story. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I if people haven't listened, when I first started the podcast, I watched MLS in 2007 because of David Beckham, a Manchester United fan. And that's when I got into soccer is in 2006. And it was all about David Beckham back then. Then it was told that he's coming to America. So I'm like, let me see what this is all about. And yeah, we know that the quality in the Premier League is nothing compared to what it is in MLS. We all know that the Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga, all those leagues are better than the MLS, but just the quality from 2007 to what it is now is just night and day difference. And yeah, I'm with you with that. Last year was the first time that I went to a Union game, and after I went to that first game, I was hooked. And so I would say, yeah, 2017, I became a fan of the Union, and yeah, we definitely have had disappointing seasons in the past, and it's nothing like going to a Union game. I say it all the time. If people are debating whether or not going to a Union game, just go. Like, it doesn't compare to the football atmosphere, the basketball atmosphere. Like, Union games are different, and it sucks that COVID's going on and everything. But I mean, yeah, you're right, man. Just going to one game, get you hooked instantly.
Yeah, and I was actually lucky enough to go to the Toronto game during COVID. So I was at the route. It was an interesting experience, man. You could really hear the players talking to each other. You could hear the coaches yelling. It really gave you a better sense of, who kind of the leaders on the pitch were, right? Because there's leading by example, and then you can actually physically hear people or audibly hear people talking on the pitch. It was a really cool experience. It's the only game I've gone to, but I wanted to go to one, during lockdown, just so I could kind of say that I experienced that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was going to be my next question, asking if you went to any games live in person. And you're right. That's something that every podcast that I recorded doing reviews about games, I wanted to bring up, just like you can hear every single player talking. You can hear the players giving it to the refs. You can hear the coaches giving instructions. I know myself personally sitting in the river end, that game against Toronto, we were just giving it to Westberg, the goalkeeper for Toronto, the whole game. And so, yeah, it's like you can hear the guys on the field, and when there's 2,000 people, the players can hear what's getting shouted at them. And I'm sure, when there's 18,000 plus people in the stadium, they can hear it too. But yeah, I feel like when it's less people, they can definitely hear when you're giving it to them, especially if you have a whole section just pouring it on. And yeah, it's really awesome that you were able to take in a game this season. And I don't know about you, but I felt completely safe going to games. I've been to, I think, all 5 games so far this season. Hopefully, we're still allowed to go to the playoff game on Tuesday. But yeah, I feel like the team's done a really good job keeping people safe going to the games. And it's just a unique experience, and especially leaving the stadium, not sitting in traffic trying to leave. I love that part.
Yeah, absolutely. The union did a good job. I'm not going to lie. I went there. I'm a new dad. So I have a 3-month-old daughter at home. She's my first one. So, I've been cooped up, before the pregnancy, after the birth, I've gotten used to staying at home and being cautious. Union had some good protocols there. I mean, as with everything, right, you have these protocols and people are going to choose to follow them or not follow them, and you try to enforce it as best you can. But I did enjoy myself and feel safe while I was there. I thought they were really good about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the way I looked at it is, people follow rules, and obviously we can keep having home games now. Granted, there's a lot of things in play, I guess, for Tuesday. Who knows? I mean, we're a couple of days away from Tuesday, so anything can change. I know here in Maryland, we just went back down to stage 2 of our lockdown, which means no sporting events at all in the state of Maryland. So, you just got to keep people safe. So I want to say, just hold out until after Tuesday, then you can go in lockdown, but it's all about keeping people safe, and I totally get that. I never thought that I'd be able to go to a Union game in 2020, so to be able to go to 5, I'm super lucky, and you to say you went to 1, I'm sure you're like, yeah, I never expected this in 2020, but let's just go straight into what I talked about last episode, just the latest MLS news with the player awards, and I'm not going to get too much into it, who won by how many percentages and everything. We're more focused on the Union players, if you think players got robbed and whatnot. So, yeah, let's just get straight into the news. So just like I started with last episode, I talked about Lucas Zelarayan of the Columbus Crew winning MLS Newcomer of the Year. He won with 21.30% of the votes. Last episode, I said Robert Beric of Chicago Fire, in my opinion, should have won that award because he scored 12 goals in 23 games. But what I want to focus on with you is Jose Martinez. He finished 4th with the likes of Alan Paleto, Beric, 2 strikers, and then Zelarayan being another attacker. And, to finish 4th as a defensive midfielder, that's pretty impressive. I feel like myself and Drew, we were talking about it. He probably would have got a little bit more votes from the players, but, he's a guy that defenders, just attackers, they don't want to play against. This guy is going to make you feel it on the field. He is not afraid to lay in and challenge on you. We saw what he did with Higuain against Inter Miami. And so, yeah, I think it's cool to see him get props and everything. I feel like if it wasn't for his position, being a defensive player, he probably would have been a little bit higher up. But just to see him get recognized, especially a player that myself and just a whole bunch of other Union fans thought wasn't going to contribute much, Ernst said, yeah, this guy's a project, and wasn't expecting to start, and got the starting spot after the second game, and he has not looked bad ever since. So super excited to see Jose Martinez get recognized by the league, but I would have liked to have seen him get a little bit higher up, but that's just nitpicking. Just what are your thoughts? Were you expecting to see Jose Martinez on this list for Newcomer of the Year? Or did you think it'd be higher or lower?
I think he's deserving to be on there, certainly. I think the way that you touched on being a defensive midfielder, not always the most glamorous position, right? It's not a celebrated position, but I think you can kind of judge the job that he's done, that you can tell that other players hate to play against him. And he's just one of those guys where if he's on your team, you love him. And if he's on the other team, you absolutely hate him, right? I think he's done a great job of getting under people's skin and kind of acclimating himself to MLS, which isn't always easy to kind of jump into. But for me, I'm full disclosure, I wasn't the biggest fan of Harris. I
don't think a lot of people were.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, passes, kind of started the offense, stretched some balls. But my fear when they were replacing him was that they were going to kind of do an overcorrection, right? And really go to a full-on defensive stopper, almost like an extension of the back line. And really try to build from the outsides instead of kind of going up the spine like they had the last couple of years. And honestly, with some of his passes, I think that's kind of the the reason that he probably got more votes than I would have expected, honestly, because he did unlock our offense quite a bit, right? He had a lot of touch, a lot of pace. I think you could see it with that cross that he delivered, right? I think it was to Corey Burke.
Yep.
The pace that he put on that is just, for a defensive midfielder, he sure did not look out of place inside the box or kind of attacking up there. So he's more than I imagined. You know, that's just kind of standard hat at this point for Ernst Tanner. There's really not much else to say.
Yeah, there isn't.
Everything Ernst is touching right now is absolutely turning to gold, right? And as you know, I'm not sure if all of your listeners are kind of 5 for 5 Philly people, but we've kind of gotten used to our decision makers and general managers not making such great moves. And what I'm calling a lot of what Ernst is doing is good business, and the Philadelphia Union haven't done good business in quite some time. So it's really refreshing to see in such a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a big stick on Ernie Stewart, the former GM, where, he didn't really go out there and splash on big player signings. I mean, I guess he laid the foundation, but other than that, he's looked at as a failure to some fans, and some people are like, yeah, I appreciate what Ernie did, but with Ernst Tanner, that's a great point you bring up. Everything that he's touched, it's been gold, and we'll get to the Kai Wagner rumors here in a little bit, which, I mean, Ernst Tanner is just finding these guys in third divisions, finding them in the Venezuelan league, finding them in the second tier in France football. It's like, yeah, this guy just knows what this team needs, and luckily for us, everything that he's found has turned to gold for us, and now you're hearing rumors of players that are potentially going to get sold, not only homegrowns, but players that Ernst Tanner signed 2 years ago for this team. Moving on, though, for the MLS Young Player of the Year award, that went to Diego Rossi of LAFC. He won with 29.10% of the votes. Brendan Aronson came in a close second with 28.87% of the votes. Now, yeah, if I had to vote on this, I probably would have voted Diego Rossi too, even though I'm a Philadelphia Union fan. I mean, Diego Rossi, I talked about this last episode, he carried LAFC with Carlos Vela missing most of the season for LAFC to score 14 goals, to be the Golden Boot winner, to be a finalist for MLS MVP of the season. When he's getting this kind of recognition, I think it only made sense that he won Young Player of the Season, but that's not to discredit what Brendan Aronson did for the Union. Look, dude's getting sold to Salzburg for $6 million and all these easy incentives that he can bring more money to the Union. So what Brendan's done from last year, where, in my opinion, he completely took that spot from Marco Fabian, where, yeah, you can debate or not whether Marco Fabian was what Ernst Tanner really wanted, but he was brought in here as a DP signing to play that number 10 spot. And once Brendan Aronson got given the chance, didn't look back. And, maybe you can talk about, just how bad Marco Fabian was. But no, I think that there was competition for Brendan Aronson to be like, hey, look, this guy's played all over the world. This guy's played in his national team with Mexico. This guy has had success in Germany. And I think that helped Brendan Aronson take his game to the next level, and then he came into the season looking a lot more sharper. He looked a lot more stronger than he did last year. Last year, he was a lean player getting pushed off the ball, and granted, he's still getting pushed off the ball, but we were seeing Brendan Aronson this season actually hit people off the ball, which we did not see last year. Like, I felt like if Brendan was going in for a challenge, a guy wasn't moving, but we were seeing calls get called against Brendan Aronson, which did not happen at all, which is still crazy to think with a kid that small being able to foul a player that's 160, 170 pounds. Like, yeah, I don't know about that one, but to see Brendan Aronson get recognized, almost come away with this award, I think it's just a credit to what Brendan's been able to do from year 1 to year 2.
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I noticed in Brendan this year really was the confidence and kind of that finishing or that final touch in the last third, right? He wasn't thinking about, hey, should I go here or here, right? He was kind of just reading the play as it came and just making a decision and being confident with it. And I think the big thing with Brendan Aronson's growth really is you have to tip your hat to Jim Curtin, right? With the way that he's talked about it and come along and instilled that confidence, right? Confidence is something that you see come and go in world-class players, right? So to kind of keep that throughout this entire year, came out gangbusters, didn't score for a little bit, has kind of turned it on here at the end. It's just really impressive for a kid at that age to see those videos that he was putting out, right, during lockdown, right? He wasn't resting on his laurels. He was identifying areas. He was being open to criticism or constructive criticism, right, and really trying to improve those weak parts of his game. And I think you see that. I really think you see that in most games that he's played this year. It's been awesome to watch him develop. And honestly, I am now a big Salzburg fan just for the sole fact that I hope they make the Champions League so I can see Brendan Aronson go over there and play at Salzburg.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whether or not it's in the Champions League, I feel like they're definitely going to be playing European soccer. I don't think there's any team close in Austria that's going to take that first spot away from them. And so they always get drawn into tough groups and everything. And right now, I know they're struggling in the Champions League. So I think the aim for them should be definitely get into the Europa League. Now, granted, there's a lot of good teams playing the Europa League, and I know a lot of people look down on the Europa League like it's the second division compared to the Champions League, which it is, but still to be playing European football, that's still really, really impressive. And here I go saying football where I should be saying soccer, but when you start talking about European teams, I guess it's only part of chorus to say football. But coming in fifth place, though, was Mark McKenzie, which we'll talk about the Defender of the Year voting here in a little bit, but you know, to see even Mark McKenzie to get recognized for the Young Player of the Year where everybody in front of him was an attacking player. To see a defender get 6.72% of the votes, which probably took away some of the votes from Brendan Aronson. But Mark McKenzie, I mean, this is another guy, too, just had a phenomenal season. And I'm sure we'll probably touch on it a little bit later when we talk about the Defender of the Year award, which, spoiler alert, I think he got robbed. But we can debate that a little bit later if you so choose to. But yeah, to see two Union players voted in to the top 5 for the Young Player of the Year just is credit to the academy, credit to these young guys, and what this team's all about. A big core about our team is these homegrown players getting chances.
Absolutely. And I think another really important point is these aren't two guys from the academy that traveled from Florida or California, right? These are guys from Bear, Delaware, or New York and Medford, right? These are guys that you identified at a young age, you brought into your process. You have educated, you have grown, you have matured, and now you're reaping the benefits, right? And you're kind of seeing a lot of teams throughout MLS, especially now that it's being highlighted with the supporter shield, right? People are coming out and actively talking, hey, this is the model that we're going after. It's fun, right? I have faith that they're going to continue to identify that. I have a good friend, Jeff Mitchell, who heads up Roxbury United Soccer Club. Through his efforts, they now have a direct pipeline to an in-the-city soccer club with coaches coming out and giving that development at those crucial early ages, right? For me, when I was younger, I was playing, and it was my dad and a couple other dads from the neighborhood that really had no idea, but they wanted to be there for their kids, go out there, try to not bunch ball. You're seeing an evolution in American soccer, and really within American soccer, at least for those young kids that are staying at home and not going overseas, you're seeing the Philadelphia Union lead the charge on how to develop them and how to transition them into the first team of our domestic league, which is, I'm really proud that the Philadelphia Union are doing that. And, they spend a lot of money in a lot of years. They get X amount of money a year. They're spending a lot of that on the academy, right? Now, when you get this influx of cash with Brendan Aronson going over there, and I can't imagine Mark McKenzie being far behind. You mentioned Kai Wagner earlier. There's a lot of pieces here that can be moved for profit, for money to fund this thing, right? And now that you have that investment in the past already in the academy, you have that up and running. It's proven to work. You have more people coming out of it and transitioning into the first team. Well, that new money gets to go towards our first team, right? You talked about not being able to spend earlier. Guess what? For the first time in its history, the Philadelphia Union, in theory, right? In theory, should have the cash to go through and start making serious investments in their first team, which with Ernst Tanner giving him money, I can't think of anything I'd be more confident in right now.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. And I love the shout out to the King of Posidelphia, Mr. Jeff Mitchell. Loved having Jeff on the podcast. Love seeing him at the games and everything. I mean, the dude just is all positive vibes. And you had to see what he does with Roxbury, like you said. I mean, dedicates so much to those young kids. And he says all the time, it's not about win or lose. It's about, getting better each and every single day. And I think that's such a great mindset. And who knows, maybe somebody comes through Roxbury United and signs for the Union Academy, and in a couple of years, see one of those kids on the field for the Philadelphia Union. And because of what the coaches are doing there at Roxbury United, believing into these kids is just something really, really special. And the next point I wanted to bring up is Andre Blake. He's won MLS Goalkeeper of the Year, which everybody expected this, in my opinion. I know the annoying Orlando City fans are like, Pedro Gallis was going to win this. I mean, he's the best goalkeeper in the league. Like, No, you guys, like you can say we're being biased because we're a Philadelphia Union fan, but Andre Blake has stolen 8-9 points I can think of off the top of my head for the Union this season. There's no wonder why he's MVP for the Union, and to see a goalkeeper nominated for MLS MVP of the year, that speaks to how good he is. Yeah, Matt Turner had a great year for New England. I think part of the reason why New England are in the playoffs is because of Matt Turner, but he is no Andre Blake. Andre Blake is the best goalkeeper in MLS, and it's a shame for Andre Blake himself. I feel like in 2018, when he potentially could have went to Europe, but Jamaica weren't in the top 50, I think, in the FIFA rankings, so it caused him not to go over to Europe. Hey, look, we're not complaining. To see Andre Blake get back to the form that he was in 2016, the off year he had in 2019, where I was a big critic of his, saying we need a new goalkeeper. Andre Blake's lost it. He's making mistakes that a veteran goalkeeper like himself shouldn't be making, and you bring in a new goalkeeping coach, which I'm sure helped correct so many mistakes that he was making last year. There was rumors that he was hurt last year, and yeah, I'm so happy to see Andre Blake get back to what he was in 2018 and 2016, and this guy's probably not going to win MVP of MLS because he's a goalkeeper, but yeah, to see him get credited with MLS Goalkeeper of the Award of the Year, if he wouldn't have got that, I feel like that would have been a travesty. It would have been just as bad as if Jacob Glesnes doesn't win Goal of the Year against LAFC. But yeah, Andre Blake, well deserving of MLS Goalkeeper of the Year.
Completely deserving, right? He has always had the circus save in him, right? The highlight reel save that MLS throws in their marketing. He's always had that in him. And really last year, right, he had some trouble with some basic stuff, right? Corners going out for balls and not getting them. But I think the one thing that I'm kind of taking away from all these awards, and I hadn't heard the percentages until you laid them out, is, these are all related, right? The spine of the Union was so strong this year, right? You're talking about Jose Martinez coming in there and giving top cover for the defense like they've never had before. In turn, Mark McKenzie feels, like somebody's got his back. He feels more empowered to go out and make some other plays and to be a little bit more proactive, not having to worry about every little thing going wrong. And with that in front of Andre Blake, right, he's probably less anxious to go out and grab balls where he got caught in the middle. Right, he could just stay at home and make sure that he's making those simple plays. And I think that's the biggest thing with Andre Blake this year was you just saw him make the simple plays, right? Good rebound control, swallowing up balls that came at him. And those are the little things because, let's be honest, the Philadelphia Union weren't letting up a ton of chances and certainly not at home throughout the year. Right, I think in that Toronto game, they had, 3 shots to Philadelphia's 24, 27, something ridiculous like that, right? But, he was sharp when he was called upon. If you're the goalie on the best team in the league, you got to be in consideration. I think the highlights along with the simplistic, saves, absolutely deserving.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I was looking at that the other day where looking at which goalkeepers had made the most saves in MLS, and Andre Blake wasn't even in the top 5. That tells you how good the defense was in front of him. And like you said, when he was called upon to make a save if the defense got beat, more times than not, he was there to make that save. And Andre Blake finished the year, I believe, with 8 clean sheets, one behind Joe Willis of Nashville. And, we probably would have liked to have seen a couple more clean sheets. But, hey, look, the Union finished in first place, and I know we're going to talk about the Supporters' Shield. They've allowed the least amount of goals in MLS this season, only allowing 20 goals. And I was reading something the other day. Andre Blake said his goal for the season was no more than 30 goals. And he absolutely crushed that goal with only giving up 20. And I think the next closest was Columbus giving up 21. Eloy Ram's a great goalkeeper for Columbus, but yeah, nobody comes close to what Andre Blake is. And hopefully he's healthy for the playoffs, which, he said in his press conference early in the week that the stitches came out. He said that they would try to get some training in, and if all feels good, he should be good to go. He's optimistic that he'll be able to play. So, yeah, hopefully we see Andre out there. If not, I feel confident with Matt Freese, even though he wasn't tested against New England. So, yeah, maybe if a team comes out here and tests him more, and if he looks shaky, then maybe I'm going to be regretting saying what I'm saying. But, he made the saves that he needed to make against New England, and that's all you can ask from a goalkeeper. But going on to the next award, MLS Coach of the Year, Jim Curtin, he absolutely crushed everybody out of the window with this. He won the percentage by 43.68. The next closest was Oscar Pereira of Orlando City with 24.02. And there's no denying what Oscar did with Orlando City. To see them be a complete crap team last year, to see them finished, I think, in 4th place this season. Yeah, 4th place in the Eastern Conference. To see them go to the final of MLS's back tournament. Yeah, I mean, he's done an excellent job. But look, Jim Curtin, first trophy in team history, finished with the best record in MLS. Only give up 20 goals this season. If this was a regular season, this team was going to set so many records, I believe, with goals scored, probably points, probably least amount of goals conceded.
Points at home.
Points at home, yeah. Undefeated. 9 wins at home. The first time that's ever happened in MLS, a team's went undefeated at home. It is, if this was a regular season, it's pretty scary to think of what the Philadelphia Union could have done. And big credit to that is because of Jim Curtin, with the Union sticking with him for 5 years, to all the boos that he got when he first got there, saying, oh, this guy's a crap coach. Get rid of him. Yeah. Now all these people are saying, yeah, I was wrong. They're quiet now because Jim Curtin is a top coach in MLS.
He is an awesome human, an incredible person to hear speak, a great motivator. And I think the biggest thing for me with the Union this year is they were just bigger than their individual parts, right? Kind of going back to what I was saying about right up the spine, right? It's just, they played for each other. They played for him. He fostered that kind of culture over a few years, right? You've kind of seen this coming. Maybe not to this extent, right? To the point where if we had played those games that, undoubtedly numerous club records would fall, but you've seen this coming, right? You've seen over the last year and a half them build this brand of soccer with that diamond. And don't get me wrong, I was critical of it when I came around, right? It's not something you see over in Europe. It's not something I'm used to. But they went out and they acquired players to complement the individuals that they had in certain roles. You have Alejandro Bedoya playing his role. You have Kai Wagner playing his role. You have Montero playing his role, right? And they went out and they found pieces that are going to supplement them. They didn't go and look to replace exactly what Harris did. They brought somebody in. And again, very limited training. You see Martinez come right in and hit the ground running, right off the bat, come in and just go. And that can only be attributed to Jim Curtin having a very set system, of being able to communicate that to his players, of being able to lay out his expectations for what each role is going to play, and then seeing that out on the practice pitch, right? And bringing that to the games and keeping these guys up and keeping these guys fresh. You could see in the way that they were interacting with each other after they raised the shield, right? This is a team that loves playing for each other. This is a team that loves playing for Jim. This is a team that loves playing for these fans. And, I don't think they're done. I didn't get the sense that they were there. They were happy to just lift that shield, right? There's business unfinished. So now you got me all gassed up for Tuesday.
Yeah, me too. And, we got to wait till the games later tonight because this podcast is coming out on Friday. And we'll get predictions and everything. I gave you guys my predictions up to the quarterfinals, but I'll finish that out. But the last MLS award that's out by the time we're recording this podcast is MLS Defender of the Year. That went to Walker Zimmerman of Nashville FC. He came away with 28.37% of the votes. Mark McKenzie came in second with 23.04% of the votes. Mark McKenzie, he won the club voting, he won the player voting, but Walker Zimmerman came away with the club and the media voting, which I'll be honest, I've only watched one Nashville game, so I don't know how good Nashville were. I know they struggled to score goals, but defensively they looked good, and I got to imagine when you have an MLS veteran like Walker Zimmerman, you're going to play good defense, and last year he was a runner-up for MLS Defender of the Year, and now this year he comes away with the award. Mark McKenzie, being Union fans, maybe we're biased, but to see him grow just like Brendan Aronson from year 1 to year 2 to get that starting spot last year over Austin Trusty, it's just phenomenal watching Mark McKenzie play out of the back. So cool, calm, and collected, passing out of the back. That's what you want from your center back. And a lot of times in Europe, you see teams try to play out of the back, and it doesn't go as planned. But Mark McKenzie, when he's pressured, slots the ball to where he needs to get it. He's confident playing long balls over the top, and he gets the pass there accurately. If somebody gets caught out of position, which doesn't happen often, Mark McKenzie has enough speed and pace to go ahead and cut that guy off to win the ball back. He's such a strong tackler. And like you said earlier, this is a guy who's probably not too far behind Brendan Aronson from getting sold to Europe. It's just about, okay, one, I got to imagine, just like the Union did with Brendan Aronson, which club is going to continue Mark McKenzie's development? Which team's going to give Mark McKenzie the best chance to just continue as a pro player? It's probably not going to be about who gives the most money, but who's going to take care of Mark McKenzie the best. And yeah, hopefully a team ponies up what the Union are asking for. They take care of Mark McKenzie. They give him a chance. And yeah, I would not be surprised at all. Come the end of the playoffs, we hear Mark McKenzie is going away in Europe someplace in January.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shame in coming in second, especially with the vote that close, right? My feelings on the matter, I'm not going to badmouth Walker Zimmerman. I think he's a hell of a player. But you said, right, McKenzie won the club vote. Zimmerman won the media vote. My guess is if Mark McKenzie played another 2 years in MLS, right, he'd be getting the benefit of the doubt with the media. But like you said, he wasn't a full-time starter last year. You know, coming into this season, really, with Glesnes, Elliott, and McKenzie, it wasn't a given that he was going to be an every match guy, right? And he just took that and he never let go. I'm really excited for his future. I think he's going to be absolutely a crucial part for this MLS Cup run. But going back to him lingering in the MLS for another 2 years to get the benefit of the doubt with the media, as a Philadelphia Union supporter, I don't think we're going to get that luxury to see him playing in Chestnut for another couple of years. But really excited for the matches that he has left. Been really fun. I actually have family from Bear, Delaware, so the season ticket member, jersey unveiled 2 years ago. I kind of had a quick conversation with him about Bear, Delaware. So good dude. Wish him nothing but the best. He would have gotten my vote for sure. Understand why the media might have swayed it one way, but hey, hell of a year, hell of a player, and excited to see what the future holds for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about two rumors that one I mentioned earlier was Kai Wagner being linked away to go to West Ham and Fulham in the Premier League, and apparently a couple Bundesliga clubs are also interested in Kai Wagner. I know Transfer Market, I forget the guy's name, I should have put it on my paper to give him credit, but he came out and said, yeah, Fulham, they're not really interested at all. It's mostly West Ham, and yeah, Premier Bundesliga clubs are interested in him, which a little bit confused why West Ham would be interested, as I think they have a pretty decent left back in Aaron Cresswell over there. I don't know, maybe a bigger club's going to come out and sign Aaron Cresswell, and West Ham know that. So look, here's Kai Wagner is having an outstanding season with the Philadelphia Union. And yeah, the one thing that I found interesting is, now granted, the Daily Mail came out and reported transfer fees and whatnot. And if, like you said, you're a Premier League fan, so if you're a listener and you follow the Premier League closely, don't pay attention to the Sun. Don't really pay attention to anything the Daily Mail says, the Daily Star says, because, yeah, they're more of like a TMZ, just gossip. But They came out and said that West Ham and Fulham are eyeing up a $3.5 million move for Kai Wagner, which is in euros. Sorry, no, not euros, in pounds. And so I just did a whole bunch of configuration. So that comes out to be $4.6 million in US dollars. Now, with Kai Wagner not being a homegrown, the league gets a 5% cut, which comes out to be $232,000, which means that the Union would walk away with $4.4 million, which, if you look at the rumors that the Union signed Kai Wagner from the third division in the Bundesliga for around $200,000 to $300,000, to make $4.4 million on a guy that was playing in the third division, playing in the fourth division at one time in the Bundesliga. Yeah, this is a deal you can't say no to, in my opinion. And I know there's rumors out there that Kai Wagner's contract's up at the end of the season, but with anything that Ernst has done, it's always been a 2-year deal with a 1-year team option. So I got to imagine that the Union do have a team option on Kai's contract, but who knows? Contracts in MLS are so hard to figure out, okay, how much is this player getting paid? How much has this guy signed in a bonus? How much is this guy signed on for? So it's just speculating what Ernst has done in the past. But yeah, I got to imagine the Union are not letting Kai Wagner go for free. In my opinion, he's been the best left back in MLS. And I've been saying it ever since last season. Like, this is a guy who you can tell he has quality. He came through the Schalke system over in the Bundesliga. Didn't work out for him over there. Had to go and play in lower leagues. Ernst, when he was over in Austria, had to have been scouting Kai Wagner, because how else are you going to find out about a player in the third division in Bundesliga? And comes over here, absolutely kills it last season. A little bit surprised that he stayed on again for a second season because of how well he played, and absolutely took his game to another level. dude has a rocket of a shot. Because if we go all the way back against Inter Miami in MLS's back tournament, dude scored his first goal for the Union. And it wasn't like, oh, this was just some cheeky tap-in. Now, this is a goal he banged from the top of the box. Like, this guy has an eye for goal. But the guy that I fully expect to come in once we sell Kai Wagner, Matt Real, yeah, he scored his first goal too this season. And I feel fully confident in Matt Real if Matt Real is the replacement, if we do indeed side Kai Wagner. But yeah, if you're the Union, there's no way that you say, oh, yep, I'm turning down $4.4 million for Kai Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, that's going back to the good business that I was talking about, right? And I haven't figured out the calculus of the MLS salary cap and what you can spend and all that. So if I'm wrong here, don't correct me too hard. But, coming in for a couple $100,000, you get 2 years of that top level performance, right? Kai Wagner was one of those players, the third game, fourth game in, you could see the way that he was bombing up the left. It was just, that guy is going to play here, right? And he's going to be very good. He unlocks the offense, right? On these games where we're really going well. I think the Toronto game is a perfect example, right? It was just consistently him getting behind his mark and just crossing in a solid ball into the box, right? On the ground, in the air, it didn't matter. When you're talking about that type of money, right, you always have to listen. Jamiro Montero, $2.2 million. I think he's the most expensive Union player ever. Before that, last year was Marco Fabian for 1.25. So think about the numbers that we're talking about here, right? We're talking about Brendan Aronson for 6, another 3 in fees, plus a sell-on fee. We're talking about Mark McKenzie, probably in the $3 million range. We're talking about Kai Wagner in the $3 million range. I actually had this conversation with my dad. He's like, aren't you sad that all the Union are losing their best players? And it's like, well, yeah, I am, right? It's going to be a bummer to not watch these guys, especially the homegrowns, right? Having seen them come up from the first time that they played, professional soccer. But that's kind of the nature of the business, right? Like with soccer, especially when you're in, as we were talking about, tiers of leagues, right? MLS is not of the quality of some of the other national leagues around the globe. But they deserve this chance, right? They deserve to go play. Brendan Aronson, Mark McKenzie have expressed desire to go play Champions League soccer. Kai Wagner, not originally from Germany, probably some interest in being closer to home. I always forget with Kai that he's only like 22, 23 years old. Maybe he's got a little bit of that Greg Oden thing going on. He looks like he's about 30. Sorry if you're listening, Kai, but, he still can have a chance to go play in a bunch of these leagues. I'm not sure that he would fit the best in the Premier League just with the size, right? Premier League size is really a big option, but I absolutely think he can go on and play in a top 5 league over in Europe. I'm not getting rid of him for any price. For me, I'm kind of looking at that DeAndre Yedlin transfer over to Newcastle, right? I think he was sold when he was somewhere around 24 for like $4 million, $4.75 million, somewhere around there. That's for the Union. That's probably where I'm starting the conversation. Not saying that I'm not going to take anything under that, but that's probably what I'm saying the price is if I'm opening up a negotiation.
Yeah, definitely. In the last episode, the point I brought up where we were talking about where the Union wanted to do right by Brendan Aronson, Mark McKenzie, to sell them, these homegrown guys, to a team that's going to further their development. I feel like, yeah, the Union care about Kai Wagner, but he'll be 24 come February, and he's not a homegrown guy, right? So I feel like the Union, if they get multiple offers and they're within $100,000 of each other, I feel like the Union are going to accept all those offers, go to Kai, say, hey, look, these are the offers we accepted. Here are your options. You have a couple teams in the Bundesliga. You have a couple teams in the Premier League. Whichever one you decide to go to, hey, talk it over with your family. We're fine. Thank you for everything that you've done. And now go ahead and kill it over wherever you decide to play in Europe. And I'm glad you brought that up, that you and your dad had the conversation about, yeah, aren't you sad that we're selling our good players and everything? And that's something I wanted to bring up last episode. And now you reminded me to definitely bring it up this episode. Honestly, I could see Jamiro Montero. I can see El Brujo. I could see them sold in the summertime. Look, Jamiro Montero, he's going to be 27 years old by the end of November. I was just looking at it. Look, there's a guy who didn't cut it in the French league, and the Union got an absolute steal for what he was last year for us. And I feel like a lot of young players in Europe are going to look at the Union, are going to look at MLS and say, hey, look, I couldn't really get my chances in Europe, but I'm still young enough. If I go ahead to go to the Union, go to MLS, redefine my career, why not get a second chance in Europe? And yeah, it sucks losing your good players. And that's part of the reason why I don't buy player jerseys in MLS, because these guys don't stick around for too long. But, like you said, the Union aren't a team that typically spends money. But the more and more players that you sign on good deals in Europe, you flip them for double the cost that you pay to get them. You sell these homegrowns where you don't lose any money at all. Now you're talking about serious money. And yeah, it sucks. It absolutely sucks to lose key players of this team. But in Ernst Tanner, everything he touches, like we talked about at the beginning, it turns to gold. And I can't see why you give Ernst Tanner millions of dollars to play with. Now these bargains that he's hoping play out, now he can go ahead and get a more established player in Europe. And that $4 million signing you make, that $5 million signing you make, instead of selling them for $6 or $7 million, you can go ahead and double that cost. And when we're talking 10 plus million for transfer fees, like, it's a little bit of a scary thought. But, Ernst Tanner, he's not failed us, and I don't expect him to fail us when he's selling these players either.
I view Ernst Tanner in kind of the current Union budget. I think of Ernst Tanner, I think a good analogy is Ernst Tanner, think of him as a chef, right? And right now, the Philadelphia Union are saying, hey, go make me a delicious meal, but you have to go shop at that corner store, right? Don't get me wrong, Ernst is going to make a damn good meal out of whatever he can find. But imagine giving him the budget to go shop at Whole Foods, right? Like, that's what he's going to be able to go do now. We're talking about finding Jamiro on a $2 million deal, right? You're finding Kai Wagner on a $200,000 deal. Brujo, a few $100,000. What happens when we give this man some real money to go out and make a splash on players that he thinks will come in here, right? That's what excites me. And I think that's what should excite Union fans is what's ahead of us, right? With these added funds, with a system in place, with a coach that actually has, the full backing of the club and the supporters, right? These pieces are in place. You have a culture. You have a captain that's been here, that's known it. And now you have the funds to really go invest in that first team. I don't want to take away from the excitement of this year, but I think the Union are definitely on the upwards trend for the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last bit of news I want to bring up, I know as we're getting closer to wrapping up this podcast and whatnot, is so Philadelphia Union assistant Pat Noonan is being linked with the opening of DC United, their head coaching job. And so for people unaware of what Pat Noonan offers to the Union, this guy is heavily involved with the Union. He's basically Jim's go-to guy for tactics. He's getting going in training on 1v1. He's setting things up. He's Jim Curtin's right-hand man. And to see him being linked, it's only a matter of time. The Union knew Pat Noonan's going to leave eventually. And if people didn't listen to MLS's Extra Time podcast, I think it was sometime last week or 2 weeks ago, I'll leave a link in the show notes and everything. Jim Curtin came on and talked about his aspirations to go ahead and coach in Europe. And look, yeah, it's going to suck losing Jim Curtin if he really does get offers in Europe. But a guy that I wouldn't mind replacing Jim Curtin is Pat Noonan. Or, Ernst Tanner is another guy I'm a little bit afraid of losing him, just seeing what he's doing here. But, if it's not Pat Noonan to take over to Jim Curtin, if he leaves, whenever there's just speculation. I mean, Jim Curtin did come out and say that, hey, look, I am excited about the fact that I might be able to coach in Europe. He's already offered the club the first trophy. Maybe he gets a second one at the end of the season. And, if he gets a crazy offer, I don't know. Maybe Jim Curtin just says, hey, look, I've appreciated everything that I've done with the Union. I brought them 2 trophies. I'll go down as a club legend. But I get offered a chance to coach in Europe. Yeah, I can't turn that down. And I think Pat Noonan would be an excellent coach to replace Jim Curtin. But I also think with Ernst Tanner's connections with the Red Bull system, I wouldn't be surprised if Ernst Tanner brought in a coach from the Red Bull system just because how long he's been in that system. But Pat Noonan, whether he's the next head coach for the Philadelphia Union or coaching someplace else in MLS, it's going to suck to lose him either way.
Yeah, I mean, never DC. I hope he goes where he wants, but never DC for me. But if Jim wants to go coach in Europe, I think he deserves that chance, right? He has earned it. You brought up a lot of points there, right? Like potentially losing Ernst, potentially losing a backup, potentially losing the head coach. All those things.
It's what happens when you win.
Yeah, right. You see it happen when people win the Super Bowl, right? Offensive coordinators all over the place kind of transfer around. For me, at least, I hope with what the Union do, right, is I hope we keep this internal because you have something special going, right? You don't perform and have other clubs talk about your program, your club, your system, the way that other clubs have talked about the Philadelphia Union without having gone through some of those pains to learn that, right? To really ascertain that knowledge and that culture and, forging it together. I hope the Union are able to keep at least some of these replacements when they leave from some in-house candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm glad you brought that up too, because when you have Thierry Henry of the Montreal Impact, we know what he's done in Europe. This guy's a French legend. We know he's a legend at Arsenal. We know what he did at Barcelona, when it seems like every other week he's mentioning the Philadelphia Union, the job that Jim Curtin's done. When a legend like Thierry Henry is giving credit to Jim Curtin, yeah, that's how you know you're doing something right at the club. But 2 more points I want to bring up to you, Andrew, is one, what are your thoughts on this? The Philadelphia Union are the 2020 Supporter Shield winners. Like, this is not the trophy I ever expected the Union to win, let alone this crazy year with COVID going on and everything.
It's fun because I always wear my Union stuff around town. Most of the time, people look at me inquisitively, and now it's like, oh, they're winning, right? It's like, you're damn right they're winning, right? Like, it's fun. It's a unique experience. And, I love good soccer. And you brought up a point earlier that, hey, everyone ranks, certain leagues around the world. And I was that way for a while, right? I can't watch MLS. There were too many penalty kicks. It was sloppy. The referees, I still have a problem with a lot of the referees. But, I kind of view soccer leagues like college football, right? People enjoy watching the SEC, clearly the best college football conference. But people also watch the MAC, right? People watch the Big 12. SEC has the best athletes, fastest, probably the best recruiting pool. Big 12, I kind of compare it to the Bundesliga, right? A ton of offense, not a lot of defense. You got the Italian league, like the Big 10, right? Not a ton of goals, really physical, kind of dragged out. So people watch a lot of different conferences in college football, right? Just because the Big 12 or the MAC or any of these other conferences aren't as good as SEC, you still enjoy it, right? So for me, it was a kind of a hard transition over to the MLS, but the quality of this league has so greatly improved. It is no longer a league where just aging at the end of their run, I'm going to go make a pit stop in MLS and be hailed as a hero. That's not the league anymore. I don't think that those types of players can come over here and have a ton of success. So to wear the Philadelphia Union stuff around town, have people excited, to have people talk about it, right? If there's one thing about Philadelphia, they love a winner, right? And when they're winning, everyone's all good. And maybe it's highlighted by a lot of our other teams not winning. But I'm having more Union conversations at work when I'm wearing it on my Zoom calls for my job, right? People are talking about the Union, looking at it in my background. People are having conversations about it. People are having fun. I have really only been following Union for the last 3-4 years. So I've mostly been around for the boom times, not the bust times, yep. Right? But there's a lot of excitement. There's something different about it this time. And I'm confident that the Philadelphia Union are going to be able to capture this and not let it be a fleeting moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And look, we're not good enough yet where we can turn people that are hopping onto the bandwagon away. Like, the more the merrier. Like, yeah, it is a great time to jump on the bandwagon. Like you said, Philadelphia, they love a winner. And so this is the perfect time to hop on the Philadelphia Union bandwagon. So the last thing we're talking about is the 2020 MLS playoffs. What are your predictions? If you want to go ahead, tell me the whole bracket, or if you want to tell me who you have in the final. Either way you want to take this, just do what you want with it, Andrew.
So I got the Philadelphia Union going to the MLS Cup final. I think they are that good at home. I think they are peaking at the right time. I think they're relatively healthy for where they are in the year. I think you have a lot of players that realize, hey, this is maybe my final go with the team. I think you have the depth that you need up front. I think you have the difference makers to bring in as a sub with El Sino. And like I said, right now, the Eastern Conference runs through Philadelphia. And with the way that they have looked at home and the way that they are looking right now, I don't think that there is a team that scares me in the East. And I may come back to regret that, but, I'm not to single them out, but, Toronto looked like crap when they played us. They looked like crap the game after that, and they looked like crap in the last game of the season. So for a lot of people to say that Toronto's the biggest threat, I watched them roll over and die against the Philadelphia Union in the last 25 minutes of that match.
Yeah.
Right. Sounds like you were sitting in the river end.
Yeah.
they rolled over and they quit.
They did.
They quit.
They did.
I don't think that's a team that's going to turn around and kind of come at that. Out west, I am really interested in that LAFC Seattle game. I am really, really interested. I think it's a bummer that Diego Rossi's not going to play. It sounds like if those of you who have not watched LAFC a lot, young winger Brian Rodriguez from Uruguay, 20 years old. He is a joy to watch. He is a lot of fun. I'd recommend that. If Rossi was there, I probably would have taken LAFC out west. But for now, I'm not going to concern myself with the Western Conference. I'm going to focus with the business that we have at hand. There's a lot of negative associated with some of the Union's past in the big games. But guess what? This time we have them all at home. We're not traveling to Houston. We're not traveling anywhere else. Everything's coming through Chester. And I think this team is just absolutely geared up for that challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I had LAFC over Seattle. I feel like I had to pick a upset in this bracket. I mean, there's always upsets in every bracket that you do. But then, like you said, Diego Rossi was reported to have tested positive for COVID, so he's probably going to miss the game against Seattle. And that's a big blow. Last episode, I said, I'll argue with anybody that I think LAFC had the best front three in all of MLS with Vela, Rodriguez, and Rossi. Those guys are young, except for Vela, but still, I mean, he kills it. In my opinion, he's the best player in MLS. Now, people will say Joseph Martinez, but yeah, they've definitely got the best front three in my opinion. And when these guys are healthy, they're playing together, it's really, really hard for teams to stop them. And look, for the Union to go into LAFC earlier in March and to get all 3 points, to tie these guys 3-3, to lead multiple times in this game, yeah, that tells you how far the Union have come. But yeah, anyway, my prediction. So I had Sporting Kansas City over San Jose. I had Minnesota over Colorado, which means it's Sporting Kansas City versus Minnesota. I had Portland over FC Dallas, and I had LAFC versus Seattle. I had LAFC, and I'll stick with that because I said it. So that means I have LAFC versus Portland. I have Portland advancing in that one. I have Sporting Kansas City over Minnesota. In the Western Conference Finals, I have Portland over Sporting Kansas City, which means that Portland will be in the final from the Western side. Over on the East, I had Philadelphia Union playing New England for a 6th time this season. I have Philadelphia Union, obviously, over New England. I have Orlando City over New York City. I have Columbus over the Pink Cows, and I have Toronto over Inter Miami, who I had, over Inter Miami. I have Inter Miami. No, I had Nashville. I forget. I have to listen. Oh, God. Whoever Toronto plays, Toronto is going to beat them. So that means that I would have Toronto versus Columbus. Columbus, they can't win on the road, so I have Toronto beating Columbus. I have the Union over Orlando because, look, a lot of those guys in Orlando, they're used to warm weather. And they come to Chester. Like you said, everything rolls through Chester. When you have these guys that are used to playing in Florida, warm climate, coming into 30-degree weather here, might be snowing here in Philadelphia. Yeah, those guys aren't going to want to be here. So I have the Union over Orlando. And then I have the Union over Toronto FC, which means Portland versus Philadelphia. And I do have the Philadelphia Union coming away with this with a 3-1 victory over Portland. But nonetheless, I mean, I feel like these playoffs are going to be exciting. Hopefully, as you read, people are testing positive for COVID and everything. Hopefully playoffs don't get canceled. Hopefully they go through just as planned, and hopefully we can see the Union lift the double. But Andrew, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you did a fantastic job for your first podcast. But as I always end the episode, can you go ahead and let people know where to find you on social media?
Yep. So thanks for having me. Had a blast. Always good talking soccer. Always good talking the Union. You can find me at Quaker City Cards. Believe it or not, I'm actually a soccer card collector as well. So anytime you want to drop off, say hi. Let me know what players you're following in the MLS. I'll make sure to send you something nice.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Like I said, I mean, you did a fantastic job. Really, really appreciative of you coming onto the podcast. And for all the people that are listening, if you're still not following the podcast, follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Go ahead and check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick, Todd Lewis. And let's just have our fingers crossed that the Union win MLS Cup. I don't want to see them play New England for a 6th time because, how lucky can you get to continue to beat a team, to beat them for a 5th time in one season? Yeah, it's really hard to do. But yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be New England. But regardless, like you said, Andrew, everything comes to Philadelphia. and one defeated, and one defeated there for a reason. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.